extra was able to buy off a juror. Sammy Gravano was the fixer.
Sammy the Bull was fixing the trial. He didn't win the trial fair and square.
The judge tried to prevent jury tampering by keeping the panel anonymous. But soon after the trial begins, a juror reaches out to Gravano through an intermediary, offering his not guilty vote in exchange for $60,000. He gets the money, and Gotti gets acquitted.
It shows you how tricky it is with the mob, because we had an anonymous juror. That's a little scary.
Fixed jury or not, some law enforcement officials argue that the U.S. Attorney's Office shouldn't have brought the case against Gotti in the first place. The FBI often assists with federal prosecutions, but this time it withdrew its support entirely. Why did the FBI refuse to help federal prosecutors? The Bureau thought the case was weak, and it opposed prosecution tactics.
When they finally brought that case, it was all old stuff. They had some horrible witnesses.
The prosecution's case largely depended on the testimony of mob informants who were viewed as untrustworthy. During her investigation, Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Jackalone learns that one of Gotti's co-defendants, Wilfred Willie Boy Johnson, is a major informant for the FBI. In an effort to force Johnson to testify, Jackalone plays hardball and exposes him in court as a mob rat. Willie Boy still refuses to take the stand. Even so, his exposure leads to his murder on Gotti's orders 18 months later. The loss of a top informant is only one of the hurdles now facing the FBI. Agents assigned to Gotti's case also blame the press for making him harder to catch. How did the media spotlight hurt the FBI's investigation? With Gotti's name constantly in the news, agents find fewer informants and would-be witnesses willing to come forward.
It poses a significant problem for us because there are fewer and fewer people who would be inclined to want to help us in any way, shape, or form, either because they legitimately kind of like the guy or they're really afraid of him.
Those trying to bring Gotti down believe the stories about him are one-sided.
They did make him out to be a superhero, where, to me, as a law enforcement, he was a criminal.
Mr. Gotti was a guy who'd been to jail for shooting a man in the gut in a bar, but you never heard about that because that wasn't what the media thought the people wanted.
Some journalists argue they're just reporting the facts.
John Gotti was acquitted. You can't change that. We didn't make him a household word. He and the failure of the government to convict him is what helped propel him into the big name that he was.
Both sides agree that media coverage of Gotti placed additional pressure on federal crime fighters.
When Gotti was showing up on the covers of magazines, the word came from the Justice Department, get this guy.
Gotti's highly publicized courtroom victories proved to be a turning point in the fight to bring him down. Under increasing pressure, the New York's FBI office makes Gotti its top priority. Agents install a $100,000 video camera in an apartment 2 blocks away from the Ravenite. Now they can record clear images of mobsters at Gotti's weekly meetings. Why did Gotti start holding these regular meetings? To test the allegiance of Gambino family members.
It was a little bit tougher to plot behind his back if they're always kind of around one another and everybody's hearing what everybody else is talking about.
Through these meetings, Gotti also learns about the inner workings of the family. He secures a cut of each of his captains' illegal earnings. Ultimately, Gotti's move is a foolish one. It allows the FBI to videotape those who enter or exit the club. However, the tapes contain no incriminating conversation. Did the silent tapes help build a case against Gotti? Yes, they help prove a criminal organization was at work. Once prosecutors establish the existence of an active criminal organization, they can make use of a powerful legal weapon. It's a federal law called RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Under RICO, prosecutors are able to go after individuals who are part of an organization that is committing crimes.
Getting them together at meetings would go a long way towards putting that they're together and they may be in the same enterprise.
But while Gotti makes it easy for agents to videotape his associates, he still makes it difficult to bug his most sensitive conversations.
John got up and walked away from the area where we had the bug and the Ravenite a number of occasions. We could tell he was going someplace else.
The FBI is getting closer, and Gotti's time as a free man will soon come to an end.
You think I would tolerate any of this crap if I was home?
How the government finally got their man is next, in the conclusion of The Final Report. April 1989, New York City. FBI agents have planted bugging devices in John Gotti's headquarters, the Ravenite Social Club. But they have trouble capturing incriminating conversations. Gotti, it seems, keeps leaving the room. Where was Gotti going to hold his conversations? To an apartment above the Ravenite. FBI agent George Gabriel learns about it from an informant.
I said, listen, we're hearing this guy disappear. Is there someplace else in the building that he's going? And it came back that there was an apartment 2 stories above the club that he was going to have these really secret meetings.
This apartment, number 10, is occupied by the widow of a Gambino soldier. The FBI decides to bug the apartment as well. November 21st, 1989. In the middle of the night, 2 members of an FBI tech squad break into the widow's apartment while she's away. They plant a bug in the living room. Within 3 months, the Bureau is predicting Gotti's downfall. Why was the FBI so confident? The Bureau recorded Gotti clearly discussing murder and other crimes.
You tell this punk, me, John Gotti, to sever your mother head off.
These tapes lead to the arrest of Gotti and his 2 top lieutenants, Sammy the Bull Gravano and Frank Locascio. February 17th, 1992. Prosecutors play the tapes in court. For the first time, a jury can clearly hear the Teflon Don describing murders that he ordered.
He's got to get whacked. You want to challenge the administration? You will meet the challenge. And you're going to, mother.
On the tape, Gotti discusses the murders of 3 Gambino family members, including Robert DiBernardo, or DB. Gotti ordered the man killed shortly after Paul Castellano's assassination. The revelations on the tapes are stunning. So is the courtroom testimony of Sammy the Bull Gravano. It's the first time such a high-level mobster has broken the mafia's code of silence against his own boss. Why did Gravano now turn against Gotti? Gravano no longer trusted Gotti and was afraid of becoming the fall guy. At a pre-trial hearing, prosecutors play some of the government's Ravenite tapes for the first time. In one conversation, Gravano hears Gotti talking behind his back. The Don places the blame for the murder of Gambino soldier Louis De Bono squarely on Sammy. Tape statements like these convince Gravano to abandon his boss and try to save himself.
Not only did he hear himself being implicated in these murders, he also got to see the treachery that John Gotti was capable of.
Gravano testifies for 9 days, revealing his ties to 19 murders. Considering his violent past, many wondered whether Gravano would be a credible witness. How could the jury trust Gravano's testimony? He admitted to his crimes and told the jury about the deal he struck with prosecutors. At trial, prosecutors introduced Gravano as a murderer. They explained that Sammy the Bull faces severe penalties if he is caught lying on the stand.
We were able to establish with the jury that it was in his self-interest to tell the truth, because if we caught him in one lie, his deal was off and he goes to jail for the rest of his life without parole.
April 2nd, 1992. Gotti is convicted on all counts. He is sentenced to life in prison without parole. The sentencing brings to a close a splashy chapter in the Mafia's history. It also re-energizes the government's attack on the mob. Why was Gotti's conviction a turning point in the fight against organized crime? It led to future convictions around the country. Former federal prosecutor Patrick Cotter tells the final report The Gotti conviction paved the way for prosecution.